Hey everyone, Taliesin here. I'm experimenting a little bit with doing my videos today. I am looking at a different wall in my dining room, and I took my glasses off because I noticed that there were a lot of obnoxious reflections from the windows in my dining room here where I'm shooting this video. So, hey, I'm daring to be different today. I figured that since I'm writing an occult magical novel, an urban fantasy novel, but one with plenty of real occultism and magic in it, I thought I'd talk about one of my favorite occult novels today. Now, that novel is called Lammas Night by Katherine Kurtz. I read this one years ago, and it was a favorite then. It's still a favorite now. But to understand this novel, you've got to understand a little bit about the historical event that it's dramatizing. You see, we now know that in the waning days of the Battle of Britain, the witches and occultists of England did a mass working. They did it on Lammas Night, or Lunasa, the 1st of April in 1940. And basically, they all worked the way that they normally work. The witches worked in their system, the ceremonial magicians worked in their systems, and so on. But they all had the same unified goal: to convince Hitler that he couldn't cross the sea, that he shouldn't try to invade England across the English Channel, that such an endeavor was doomed to failure. They figured that it was easier to sow seeds of doubt in his mind than to try to bend his will directly, because Hitler was under the protection of some very potent and very unethical ceremonial magicians from the Thule Society in Germany. So they decided that sowing seeds of doubt was the easiest path to get to Hitler, and on Lammas Night 1940, Gerald Gardner would tell his old coven about how he and his original coven went out into the woods with very small lanterns in place of a fire, but they whipped up the energy, they formed a cone of power, all while chanting, "Can't cross the sea, can't cross the sea, cannot come, cannot come." And they sent that cone of power directly at Adolf Hitler. And like I said, other groups like ceremonial magicians and different Christian mystical organizations, they all took part. Dion Fortune, the occultist who is most well known for writing books like The Sea Priestess and the Mystical Kabbalah, mentioned this in her memoirs. And other British occultists of the era have all confirmed that such an event took place. Now, whether or not old Gerald had a coven or what it looked like at the time or what they did, we know that he took part. Gerald was part of the Home Guard, one of those people who was prepared to try to resist the Germans as they landed on the beaches of England if such a thing would come to pass. So it only goes without thinking that Gerald would use magic as well as his skills as an organizer and as a gunman to help protect his country. And that's the basic idea, the myth that this novel was based on. And again, I found this novel back when I found it in a paperback edition in a used bookstore. And I always really loved the story. Now, this one, it's an idea of how it could have happened. Katherine Kurtz isn't saying that it happened this way. In fact, she admits that this book is fiction. However, it's a great story. It's centered around the character of Grey. Now, he is part of the British intelligence system, a part of the British intelligence apparatus that really was trying to decode Nostradamus' prophecies and spin them in a way that would show England winning the war. That really existed. And that existed because the Germans had a similar office of Nazi propaganda that basically was putting out the opposite message, that prophets like Nostradamus and mystics throughout history pointed to an inevitable German victory. Well, the British weren't going to let this go by unchallenged, and they had their own department. It really existed. But the character of Grey, he's fictional. But he works for this segment of the British government, so he can see everything that's going on. And it's a unique vantage point to tell a story from. Like I said, I don't want to talk too much about the novel because I don't want to spoil anything. There is high drama. There are funny bits. There is even a few whispers of romance, but it's actually more of a bromance. It talks about the bonds between people that can exist throughout centuries, and that love doesn't have to just be romantic love to be real. It's an incredible story. And of course, Katherine Kurtz is an incredible storyteller. Many people are fond of her ongoing fantasy series that span dozens and dozens of novels. Lammas Night is one of the few novels that she wrote that wasn't set in an ancient fairy or otherwise post-Tolkien fantasy kingdom. And it's well worth a read. It's gripping. It moves incredibly well. I mean, the first time I read it in a day. I just couldn't put the thing down. Now, you'll notice, though, that I have it on my Kindle here, along with a lot of the other books I'm reading. And that is because this novel is very hard to get these days, if you want a paper copy. I've got one, but I've got it sealed away in plastic because these things go for like 50 or 60 bucks, and it's just a little trade paperback. It's not that big. But it's out of print, at least in paper. But an ebook, you can get it for $7 or $8. You can get it anytime. And like I said, my paper copy of Lammas Night is sealed away in plastic. And I can take my ebook copy of Lammas Night with me anywhere I want. And this is my kitty, Bella. She wanted to come up and say hi to you guys. But that's one thing I love about ebooks. If my Kindle got smashed, I buy another one for $50, log in, my book's back. It makes it a lot easier to carry things with you on vacation, especially when you go camping like I do. Well, that's about it for now. I recommend you go and get your Kindle edition of Lammas Night. If you like occult fiction, if you like great adventure, and if you like a book that looks at how magic really works. Say bye, Bella. Bye, Bella. Hey, I'll catch you guys around later on this channel. I'll have more books, my favorite occult novels, reviews of those coming up soon. So stay tuned.